So, good morning, everyone. So I found out last week, and I guess the beginning of this week was pretty informative for me. I learned a lot about the lab, and I have updates to give you guys. Basically, I'm working on I have a document that I'm writing right now that has every single deadline and assignment when they're due on there. So I just need to finish changing the dates on there, and then I'll send that out to you guys. So it has the assignments and then the subject, also what videos or other things I'm making available that on that day. And I think they'll make things a lot more clear. And then I won't have my text on there, so it'll just be like dates, deadlines, and it should be pretty clear. So cool. I think we have everyone. No, I think we're still missing one person, maybe two people. Okay, so what's the deal? I'll start first with the homework. So there are a lot of issues with the La Lima stuff. So I heard from you guys in terms of the actual assignments, like what you're doing in the assignment, and then also from my end, meaning like the administrative end of posting things. So I had never posted anything before. I said that last week, and I found out a lot about that. I also found out about some limitations that exist in the system. So what I'm going to do, because so there are two La Lima things that you had to submit. There is a safety quiz, and then there's a density homework. To my knowledge, there's nothing wrong with the safety quiz in terms of the key, but the deadline is off because the deadline is for today. That would have been true initially, but I posted it late, so I wanted to extend it to late, so you guys had 7 days to complete it. But I couldn't change the published thing. Whenever I did that, it said that I couldn't have two entities that were different but with the same name. So I just need to, or something like that. I don't remember exactly. So I just need to make a copy of it, and then I'll post it on there. So you guys have until Thursday to complete that. If you've already completed it, then that's great. Nothing wrong with that. For the density homework, the key itself was actually wrong. I guess it was a mistake for me to assume. So so this is your first semester of Gen Chem, but I've kind of learned at UH that as a TA, you kind of had to figure things on your own normally for teaching and in general for everything. But this semester is a little bit different because Dr. Fuller is a bit more involved, and she's trying to regulate things, which is really nice. She's actually trying to make it, streamlined. So I assumed the documents that we were given were always right, but that's not the case. So I'm going to rely back on being independent. It makes it a little bit difficult, the online format. It just makes everything way more cumbersome, but basically I gotta troubleshoot everything before I send it to you guys. That might seem like a default, but well, it's a default now. So I'll do that in the future. So I'm gonna upload the density homework as well, and resubmit that. So I'll just make a copy of it, and then you guys can complete that one too. I'll rewrite it so that it's both more clear what's needed. For example, there are some concerns about units, so I'll indicate whether you need those or not. And that's not really trivial because I understand for like a lot of assignments, for an online assignment, you might want to just input a number. So I'll make it clear if whenever you draft these things, when to include units and when not to. And also there are just some like numerically wrong information on the key. So you guys may have been right for 1 and 2, for example, and then been told you're wrong. That's because the key is wrong. So I just got to change that. What's the other thing? The spreadsheet, that's also due on Thursday. So I sent you guys an email this morning about Dropbox if you guys have issues. So we can talk about that here in lab. I want that to be open, but I also want to prioritize like things are definitely going to be helpful to you guys while we're in lab. And then if you want to email, or just if you have an issue, bring it up. But let's go over everything else first. So yeah, the spreadsheet's also due on Thursday. There's no formal deadline for that on La Lima, but I have the deadline as noon on Thursday. So just try to submit it in Dropbox by then, or you can email me. and you can resubmit that. So if you have two copies on there, on Dropbox, for example, I'll just take the more recent copy. And if you email me, I'll also take the more recent copy. So this week, it would have been nice for last week to have been kind of the play session for this lab to see how we can get things working. But it kind of makes more sense that this week is going to be that way anyway, because now you guys have had assignments and we're kind of figuring things out the hard way, which is the most realistic way to figure things out anyway. Now we have assignments, we're getting through the technical difficulties with the lab. So I'm saying that because we can use some of this lab today to talk about the homeworks you guys have had and other technical issues, so that hopefully we get past them now so they don't come up in the future. I want us to all be, on the same page, and I don't want to leave anyone behind. So this lab is for you, and it's still strange. I'm still kind of struggling to find out how to make the best use of that, but I'll talk about that too. I actually drafted an email that I didn't send you guys because I didn't finish it. That was kind of like a restructuring thing. I also didn't send it because I found out news about this lab. So I'll talk about that now. And apologies for speaking. If you guys have any questions or speaking too much, if you guys have any questions, interrupt me, please. I don't want anyone to be confused, and it's much easier to address you guys here than it is over email. So that's at least if there's that. Okay, so here's a structural thing that I've thought a lot about in terms of how to make the most of this lab. So around 10% of your grade is participation. That's usually pretty clear how to grade. It's not very clear right now with this online thing. So we've talked, and by we I mean the other TAs and Dr. Fuller and we've talked about what to do. So what I think would be a way to facilitate that and make it easy for students, and also to give you guys some structure, because having too much flexibility is similar to chaos, and there's a lot of that at UH. But it's nice to have structure, but I still want to I'm still going to be flexible, but have structure that I propose. So to be more specific, what I think I'll do moving forward is I'm going to have your lab reports and your homework due in the morning still, before class begins. Not before class begins, like I like 9:30 or something. And then I'm going to open up, when we start the Zoom, like a free-for-all kind of questionnaire. You can ask last-minute questions about the homework or report, and then you can make very quick revisions. And then after that, I will give a little lecture about what to do for today, the lab itself. And then, when possible, you guys can do the lab. So I will make, in other words, all the lab materials available for you at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning. And then you can watch like the instructional video, for example, and then perform the experiment. And then we can have another Zoom meeting, like I guess 11 or something. And that can be like the post-lab meeting. And we can, talk about what you guys experienced, what you observed, and just any questions about the report and formatting and whatever else. That seems to me nice, because if I kind of very much encourage you to do the lab then you'll have more questions to talk to me about in Zoom. But otherwise, I mean, worst case scenario, I'm just going to see, I don't know, I still need to figure out how I'm going to grade you guys for participation, but just attending the Zoom meetings is not full points participation. You still need to actively engage. Maybe a good thing for you guys to do in terms of engaging to improve your grade is to, when I put out questions that I don't always know the answer to, there are a lot of questions you guys ask me that I didn't know, because they're like things about, what was one? It wasn't about the UH bookstore, but there was something with like a bursar's account and something else with downloading Excel. And these are things I don't know. I never went through it. So like if I pose a question like that, and I'm going to later to the class, it would be nice, if you wanted to get better points for your participation, then when I pose a question to the class, if you guys can answer, help me and help your classmates, that's pretty cool. But we're figuring that out. I mean, in person, this is much easier, but I mean, unfortunately, to figure this out as we go. So thanks for your patience, and I and I appreciate it because this is not, because you guys are unfortunately guinea pigs, and you are literally the very first lab of the semester. So you're the very first online lab. You're my very first online lab, and you're my very first Chem161 lab. So you guys have no benefits of having anyone gone through this before, which means we're working through it together. And I also, when things come up, there's a lot more understanding because it's pretty natural. It's not like you guys are making things up or something. The unfortunate thing is things will come up more often. So that was kind of background just from last week and kind of like pre-lab stuff today. You guys have any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Dylan.
Yeah.
So for the pre-lab, all we had to do was build the Excel sheet for the actual lab today, correct?
Yeah, for the spreadsheet assignment, and then you had to complete 2 graphs.
No, I mean for the pre-lab.
Oh yeah, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually uploaded. If you guys go into resources and then there's a reference thing, I actually well, I didn't make it, but I had found a pre-lab that you guys can use as like a model. So basically, it gives you like a suggested formatting that you can use. So you can write something like down for each lab. And again, I'm not checking this under normal lab circumstances. I could, and I have in the past, but it's something that you can use just to make sure you're prepared for lab, so that you do the experiment much more quickly.
I guess I'm a little confused because I'm following the on the lab manual what we're supposed to be doing, and it has us build this Excel sheet on with all the equations and stuff, and it's pretty like step by step. So I just figured that was the pre-lab. Is that not the actual pre-lab, or?
Are you talking about for lab 01? So starting from like procedure down?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one might be a little bit more. Let me look at the pre-lab that I have posted in Alima so I can compare them.
Okay.
Because so what you're doing when you did that is you're actually doing the lab itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all I did was not put in any data points. Well, I guess I put in like made up data points, and then I built all the equations already in there but I didn't know, like, I had no idea what we were going to be doing today, if we we're going to do that in class or not.
Yeah, I didn't know until very recently either. So luckily, at least I know. I was worried that I wouldn't know beforehand, which would have really sucked because it's not intuitive, because the entire procedure talks about doing something in lab, right? And then I was under the impression, at least I was told before I started, that you guys would have all the materials to do the labs. And obviously you don't have the little Teflon ball and everything else to do this, right?
Right.
So, all right, so I'm looking at the pre-lab right now. No, the lab that you did, or following the procedure that you did in lab 01 is what you need to do specifically to get through this. It's actually not used. It's not something that you write in this pre-lab. I need to go to the syllabus, but for analytical chemistry, that's something that would go under like results. Not results, data and calculations. Basically, that's like the work section that you've done. So you have like the raw data, and then you have analysis of that data, then you make a conclusion, and or you propose the results of the lab, whatever it was, the objective. This is the numerical results of the objective, and then you have the conclusion that you write. So the pre-lab is basically completing the first portions of, well, I guess actually looking at the pre-lab, the procedure, you could write some of the stuff you did down there.
Yeah, it was just, it's a little confusing because in the lab manual, it specifically said this Excel sheet needs to get done before the lab starts. So that's why I was just rushing, well, not rushing through it, but I spent like hours trying to do it last night.
You don't need to. I'm glad that I'm glad that you guys are being so prepared. it's nice to have really ambitious students. Makes me feel a little bit ashamed because I'm not as ambitious in the lab because I have other things that I had to work on. So I had to, like, I was literally told by my PI to put this on my priority. So, and because you guys at the beginning of the week, whatever. The point is, you don't need to do that. So the whole thing I'm trying to encourage you guys to do because of this online format is to basically encourage you guys to get good participation points. So to talk about things in these sections. But because theoretically, like, you have an entire week to write the report and then you can kind of do it on your own time, you have a good amount of time to do these things. But if you come prepared for lab like this, then it's absolutely not going to hurt you. In terms of me grading you, like, if I'm assuming that most students are worried about grades first and foremost. If you guys are worried about learning things, which, I mean, of course you should be, right? That's over here. But then that goes a little bit deeper. But that's something you should talk to me about, or that's something you just talk to me about. If you want to learn more about anything, if you want to learn how to like prepare for, I don't know, professionalism or whatever, which is what I guess we should be teaching you, then that's awesome. But I guess I kind of tend to stoop to lowest denominator and just making sure that you guys know what you need to do to get good grades, and then I can grade you with a peace of mind in that this student got a good grade because they're working hard for it, they showed me, and this student wasn't, like, it's not that they didn't know what they had to do. I told them what they had to do and they weren't doing it, you know. I don't like giving people bad grades. So in order for me to feel better about it, I need to, like, it's helpful for me to know minimum what you guys need to have to succeed. Anyway, so, but in terms of the pre-lab, I was really honestly just expecting that you read about it and you kind of had an idea of what we're doing today. And if you prepped for it in the lab report, that's awesome, but it's not required officially. All right.
Wait, I have a question. So you keep saying the pre-lab and you said it's in resources, but like in resources, there's just like all these folders that say like lab 00, lab 01. Is that like considered the pre-lab?
So if you go under resources, there's a reference section. So
it doesn't show that for me. It's just a bunch of folders. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but that's what I have.
It should be at the very bottom. So if you go beneath lab 0.3 sublimation,
okay.
So you go in there and there should be 4 documents, and then in the reference, I just uploaded it, so you guys probably wouldn't even know about this. And I also condensed all the reference folders together. So as I get more and more files that you guys can use to refer to help write your reports and whatever, I'll put them as reference. And then each of the documents that you'll need to complete that lab, I'll put in the lab section, if I have it. At this point, I've been told you guys should be able to, I think, get the manual from the bookstore. So I don't think they're going to give me any more PDFs for each lab. So lab 0.3 might be the end for the PDFs for the manual, unfortunately. But whatever documents you guys need for that, then I will upload there. Okay, any other questions so far?
I had a question.
Yeah.
So the lab that we have to complete for this week, are we doing that like in class, or is that the resource under the lab 01 density on the Lima?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't gone into that yet. I haven't gone into this lab at all. I've just been going to background, but yes. Well, yes. So in lab 0.1 and lab 01, there's a data set in there. I uploaded it this morning, like just before class. So we'll just move on to talking about today. Unless anyone has any other questions before I move on to today's lab, I'm going to move on to today's.
I just wanted to be clear, like moving forward, what do we have to, just to be clear, moving forward, what do we have to do before we get to class?
Okay. So minimally, you guys should have, there's going to be homework every day, I mean, every week. The homework is, I call it pre-lab. I probably shouldn't because there's another pre-lab. So you have a homework every week that you do to prepare for the upcoming lab. So for this week, for example, you guys had density homework, to get you guys familiar with working through some of the density problems. And then that what would have been due today at like 9:30, but I extended the deadline to Thursday. So normally you have the homework that's due. You also normally have a lab report that's due. So next week you'll have the density lab report due at the beginning of class, roughly like 9:30-ish. This week was a little bit different, not only because I had postponed the deadlines, but also because you have the safety quiz. In addition to that, there are soft requirements. Soft meaning they're not graded per se, but they will absolutely help you and they're recommended. So like Rowan did, reading through the lab procedure or reading through the lab chapter is, I don't want to say is optional because you're supposed to have done it before you come to lab. I'm just accounting for the fact that because this is an online class, I mean, it's pretty easy to get away with not reading it before you come here. So you don't need to, but yeah, obviously it'd be a great idea to do that, to come prepared, especially if you have questions before lab starts. If you don't know what you're doing today, that you're not going to ask questions, or at least not very relevant questions. So reading the lab, reading through the lab manual, the background, the theory, which you should have done anyway to do the homework, and then the procedure. And then lastly, as a soft requirement, is writing out pre-lab. It's actually the lab report. It's just the first half of the lab report. So all that does is take away some of the busy work that you need in writing lab report so that when you do the lab itself, you can go through it really quickly. And then basically writing your report for next week is just like analyzing your data, getting a conclusion, and writing it. So it makes it way easier. Like formally though, you do not have to do that. I'm going to be grading you on your lab report that you submit next week. So if you did all the pre-lab on Monday night, I wouldn't know any different. But it's good to come prepared because you typically will do better if you come prepared. I'm just giving you guys the hard versus soft requirements, if that makes sense.
So what part is considered pre-lab in the lab report?
The pre-lab portion, let's look at the document, is the objective, background, and procedure. It's also, I would recommend also writing, let me look at the syllabus. I have that pulled up too. Because the syllabus has the lab report format. I would also recommend for you guys to write out tables for the results. It's more apparent for this one in density because you have to use Excel pretty extensively. But that's basically just like prepping the columns so that when you're going through the data, you can just put the data in and then you can do the calculations. So basically, if you guys did everything, if you guys followed all the suggestions, so you follow the requirements and suggestions, you come prepared doing the homework, like you come to be prepared for today, you're really prepared and you know exactly what you're doing, you have everything prepped on your lab report, you submit the homework, you submit the old week's lab report, you're done with that, you never think about last week again, and then you watch a video if there's a video available, or you go through the data if I give you data, and then you input your data, and then you do your data analysis, and then you figure out the answer to the objective, which you wrote down in the pre-lab, and then you write your conclusion, and then you can submit that. You could submit that by the end of the lab very, very easily if you guys had the pre-lab done. But because it's due next week, I don't expect that, but I mean, if you guys want to maximize grades, maybe I'll consider like that as part of a participation to encourage you to do that, but I don't know. I still need to figure out how to be fair with participation. It might end up being like TA points kind of thing where there's unfortunately, I don't want to say subjectivity, but there's like, it's like TA assessment of performance or something like that. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was just asking about the lab manual because I tried looking it up. Is there a name it's under?
From the UH bookstore?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, you guys have been chatting a ton of stuff. I don't even look at this.
Automatically in your Laulima.
Automatically.
I got an email from the UH bookstore, I think, saying that I'm registered for like some IDAP thing. I think that's what it is. right?
Yeah, there's an IDAP tab in your Laulima under the lab section, which has
Oh,
the lab manual.
So is that the globe symbol one?
Yeah, it says vital source for UH.
Okay.
That's where your lab.
It's right below assignments, tests, and surveys.
Cool.
I found it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just saw that actually. Because I had a bunch of links that I made and I kept deleting them. So that's cool. I'm glad you guys have that. I guess before I move on to today, there were some questions that I got emails from that I want to kind of put out to the class and see if you guys have answers to them. So I do see you guys you're using the chat. I wasn't looking at the chat. I didn't know it was there. Do you guys have any more questions you need help on with Dropbox?
I
I have a
just have a
question about
question.
the.
No.
I have a question about the safety quiz.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so the safety and introduction part in the resources where it says lab like 00.
Yeah.
And then it says 161 lab intro safety. Is that like where we're supposed to, I guess, like study for it?
Yeah, that's a video. So the kind of lead TA for us right now, he's a really cool guy. Jesse made that video, and so it's just a background that you would normally be given. They would normally be given by me on the first day of class, but to make everything easy for everyone, I guess we just made a video that one TA made, and then he's uploaded for everyone to watch. So you can watch on your own time, and then it's pretty basic, and then you take the quiz afterwards. I'm gonna upload the quiz again because there's only one quiz on there, and the deadline was today. But I want to make another one that's due on Thursday. So if anyone wants to retake the quiz, you can retake the quiz, and if anyone needs to still take it, you still can take it.
I had a question about the density homework. You said you're gonna fix the answer key. So if we already submitted it, do we have to like redo it because you're correcting it and then resubmit it? Or...
I would redo it if you wanted a better grade. If you somehow got all the right answers, like if you got 100%, then that also means there's something wrong. So I would recommend redoing it. If you guys have already done it, hopefully it shouldn't take too long. I mean, I apologize for the inconvenience. Of course, I wasn't expecting that. So, but yeah, the advantage of that at least is that if you got something wrong the first time, if you did it, then at least you have another chance to do it. So it's kind of like increasing. At least it's nice in that way, right? But otherwise,
So,
yeah.
I have a question about that homework. How is it decided what the significant figure is? Because in some cases, it's like 2 digits after decimal, and then like I understand like with 0, like if there's a 0, then that's usually a significant figure, the number prior. But yeah, I'm just a little confused because it seemed a little off.
So the sig figs is kind of like a case-by-case thing. So it helps to have like a particular example. Before I kind of go a little bit on that. Also Jesse, because we were talking, we have like this big TA chat that I got introduced to very, very late. So it was helpful for me to see it, but I wish I had it earlier. Anyway, Jesse, I brought the sig fig issue actually with him, and he said that he was going to make a video for everyone. So it's actually something that all the TAs will be giving to everyone else. So it's kind of going to make the safety thing that you have like a reference to. But again, this would be way easier if I could show this to you or write something out. But so the significant figures are a measurement. They are a representation of accuracy. So I know that seems basic, but what I mean is usually usually sig figs is like digits. How many digits you have is the number of sig figs you have. The only confusing thing for most people is with 0, and that is that 0 is significant as a decimal place, but it's not significant if it's at the end before the decimal. The reason for this is because when you are taking a measurement, let's say that you have, I don't know, you're just doing like a length measurement on something. This is really like, let's say you're measuring something on a burette, and so you're measuring liquid going down. If you get a measurement of 20.100, that's telling you that it's 10.0. It's exactly at 1, because if you get into the significancy tells you about the accuracy of that measurement, because some things you can only measure to a certain level of accuracy. Again, it's way easier if I had examples to show you, if I had like instruments, but some instruments, they give you something and they know, for example, you measure into 20.1, or they know it's 20.2, but they don't know how much over it is than 1, and so they might round down to 1. So if you've got a measurement of 20.10, it's exactly 20.10, as opposed to if you had a less accurate measurement of like 20.1 period, it might actually be 20.14, might actually be 20.13. You just don't know because your instrument that you measured it with it didn't have the level of accuracy to get that. However, if you had, actually in this case, it's 20.10, the 0 at the end of 20 is not significant, because, I mean, it is actually in this case because you have a decimal place. But if I just had a measurement of 20, you can indicate that as 2 times 10. So it's not significant. It's just a placeholder. It doesn't mean anything. It's not actually, I think the rule of thumb is that whatever you can reduce everything down to in scientific notation to the smallest is the significant digits. But again, he will make a video of it, and if I had something specifically to look at, it's way easier to explain it than just like abstract general thing. So that might be a better idea. Maybe you can send me like one of the questions in particular, and I can explain it in more detail.
Yeah, I mean, one specific question was just the conversion thing. When it was converted, obviously it was converted from pounds per gallon to, I think it was grams per milliliter. Obviously the number became really small. So it became 6.1, I think, to like point something. And it went on for, I think it was like 8 digits after decimal point. So the way I did it was I rounded off from where 0, it started when it hit 0 point. I think it was like the 5th decimal place or something like that. But in the homework submission, it rounded off to like the 4th decimal place. That's why I was just really confused, like how that was decided. So
Was this on 3? Question 3 on the homework.
Yeah, that was question 3. But I thought that was supposed to be just 2 significant figures because we started with 6.1.
Maybe I should just write this out. Does anyone? But let me do it this way first, because this is under normal circumstances probably what I would do. In fact, I'll follow this. So Ryan, I'll write this out. I'll write it on paper or something, and then I'll send it to you, and maybe you can go over it. Because I don't, and that's everyone wants to hear about this, but I'm going to assume that probably you guys want to move on. I don't know if that's a false assumption, but generally speaking, students usually want to go pretty fast. If you guys want to stay for okay, let's do it this way. If I can figure out how to do what's it called? The breakout room, maybe you guys can message me directly, and we can do a breakout room for the sig figs, and we can go over the homework. And otherwise, if you don't want to do that, then you don't have to do that. I'll make that optional. Okay, any other questions, more general questions? I can answer specific ones. I don't have a problem with it. It's just that I don't want to, because this is like supposed to be prep for today. I want to make sure that everyone is taken care of, and I can address like specific problems in more detail
I had
without
a question.
holding up people back. Yeah.
So you just want us to like print out the lab and then take a picture of it and put in Dropbox?
Yes. You know,
Okay.
you could even, yeah. So you should actually, that's actually that's the easiest thing. There are a lot of ways you
And
can
then,
do it. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, and then you want us to include our lab, like our handwritten lab report in the same PDF?
I thought you were referring to the lab report. Are you referring to the pre-lab?
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, like the actual data stuff with the lab report.
Oh. So for this lab, I might advocate a hybrid thing. If you guys want to write it all down manually, like for the data, that's fine. But depending on how much data you guys have, it's actually, I don't think it's that much. So it's fine. I'm just always trying to think of ways to reduce work for you guys. If you wanted to do it such that like you just copied Excel and pasted that onto something you wrote otherwise, I mean, you guys are all getting the same data anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you write that down in person. I mean, if you write that with your own handwriting. So for things like graphs, obviously it makes a lot more sense to paste them. In the past, I've had students like for 162, they just like manually wrote the graph, and that kind of works. Probably what I do for that is I wouldn't give full credits because you're also you're also graded on using that program on Excel or related program. I know it sounds like a cop out for me, but I'm using not Excel, but I use a LibreOffice Calc. If you guys use that too, it's basically the same thing, more or less. It's a little bit different, but it has the same functionalities and it's just as powerful. So if you you can also make graphs there, and you can also upload them. I would only shy away from using Google. What is it? Google
Sheets
something.
or something like that.
Sheets. Yeah, Sheets is just less. It's just less reliable, less powerful. So it's good to be trained on how to use these other programs.
So,
For the
oh,
density-
sorry. You can go ahead. You can go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. For the density homework that we submitted, how do we find our score on it? So if like that we know if we should retake it or not.
Anyone else have an answer to that? Do you guys know? Because I don't
It's
know.
not it's not showing up in my
Okay.
grade book.
All right, well then I just need to figure that out then.
I think after you complete the assignment, it says which questions you got wrong.
You could go on review.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The gradebook in particular, that element is something that I need to upload manually. So I actually have, speaking of Calc, I have all your grade sheets open right now. It's useful for me because I keep all your emails in here. That's how I'm emailing you so many times. So actually this has been, I've not used gradebook before. I just always have my own spreadsheet that I made. So basically once I finish the first week, like I get all the grades for it, probably after Thursday, I guess that would be, since I can get all your stuff then. I'll upload them onto the gradebook. I think it's a manual thing, but I've never used it, so I'm honestly guessing.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Can I? No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry this is really redundant. I feel like this has been answered a gajillion times, but I keep getting confused. So to the Dropbox, we upload the Excel, the pre-lab, and the lab report.
Just the lab report and
Just the lab report.
Excel.
Just the lab report and the Excel. But the pre-lab we're gonna put that inside the lab report though, right?
Yeah,
like
it is the lab report. The pre-lab is basically just like preparing for lab and writing most of the busy work for the lab report already, so you can just get through the lab really quickly. It makes a lot more sense under normal circumstances when we actually have to finish by noon, but since you guys don't have to, I'm not gonna expect you to do so because I think it's a little bit, I just don't know why I would do that. If you guys think I should, then I might, but I mean, I don't think so. So, yeah, it makes a lot more sense under normal circumstances, and I would actually care a lot more, but it's hard for me to care with this online format. Any other questions?
I just wanted to ask a question about like the Excel exercise, but like a specific one. Should I ask you that later? It's just like about a step that I'm like kind of unclear on.
I'll leave it up to you guys. So do you guys, in general, would you prefer to be like stay as a class when we're going over these homework problems, or do you want to just move forward? Because I mean, it's what works for you guys. I'm trying to be considerate when I say let's talk about that separately. It's not because I can't go over it. I just don't want to get everyone hung up if they don't want to, you know.
I'm okay with staying as a group.
I would like to stay as a group. Yeah, I feel like it'd be a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah, often multiple people have like the same specific question anyways.
Okay. All right. So then, all right, you can shoot yours, so then I'll go over Rowan's question afterwards.
Yeah, so when we have to do the second graph, it so first it says to do a graph that yeah, so it says make a graph of time on the x-axis and concentration of the N205 on the y-axis. And then it says to make a graph using the natural log, and I'm wondering if it's supposed to be on the same graph or it's two separate graphs. So it's not really clear on that.
You could. Are the units the same on both axes?
Is this for the second exercise?
Yeah, it's for the second one.
You're supposed to make a separate lab because then it goes on more in depth about like how to expand your data points so that it actually shows us a line. And you
For
can't
the
really,
natural log?
yeah, for
Okay.
natural log of N205.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I wasn't sure if they wanted it to be like combined into one.
Yeah,
graph.
I was pretty confused too, but then later on it talks more about like how there can only be two data or two sets of data for y-axis, x-axis, and then once it starts going into like specifically what the graph's supposed to look like, then it'll tell you the y-axis doesn't have a title anymore because it's not actual measurement or something like that. So
Okay.
if you read further on, it'll explain.
Cool, that was a great answer. I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't want to.
No,
I wasn't trying to.
I prefer for you guys to work through it like this, because kind of like I've been saying, I have a little bit more of the admin role than I haven't gone through these things, so I don't know all of the details sometimes. My style has usually just been to go through things piece by piece, and like if you guys have a question, that's why I asked if the units are the same. If the units are the same, you could. I mean, not the units. If the units and the axes are the same, you could. But if it depends, like what Rowan's saying, if they're for different purposes, and if you're extracting data, extrapolating data from beyond them, it makes a lot more sense to keep them separate. In general, having them as separate is never going to hurt you. Usually, you only combine two trend lines, if I can put that way, two sets of data on the same graph if you're trying to compare those two sets of data. Cool. All right, so on Rowan's question, let's just maybe write this out. I'm just going to do this. It'd be way easier if I could write it out on paper, but I probably need to show you guys what I'm doing, I'm guessing. So maybe I need to write it out on a document, and I can like share my screen or something. Okay, let's do this. All right, so I'm gonna try showing my screen. How do I do that? Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3. Okay. Ah, damn it. So in this case, these two get so that would be grams per gal. Am I doing the right question? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it's the right
Yeah, we
question.
can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Cross that out. That's grams per liter. All right, so we had two really accurate numbers here, this one and this one. So this is what I was talking about earlier, Rowan, like from a pragmatic perspective, these numbers are so, in order to get this, like you can see crazy accurate measurements, like let's say the density of water. If I just look that up, it's dependent on temperature, actually, that's relevant for today. Let's see what they give us. Well, they could give us a lot more. This is just a good number. Here we go. So you see numbers like this. This also has 5 sig figs. Depending on what you're measuring it with, and I'm not exactly sure what that could be. There are a lot of different tools you could potentially measure density with. Different instruments have different levels of accuracy just because some are more sensitive than others. So these are really accurate numbers, but the thing that was given to us wasn't. So we're limited to 2 sig figs. In this case, can we reduce this to 2 sig figs? This would be, because this has obviously a ton. If we were to reduce this to 2, I would say that you would have to go that.
That still has to get turned into grams per milliliter though, right?
Oh, I didn't convert that to milliliters, right? Okay, thanks for checking that. So 1 mil equals 1. Okay, so let's take that times 1 mil So basically we divide this by 1,000. So that is already 10,000, right? So that's gonna be 10.469, whatever. We don't need those numbers at this point, grams per milliliter, which makes it a lot easier. We're actually constrained to having 2 sig figs. So I would want to reduce it down to 10. I actually, because of this, you can round this up to, if we're to round these numbers up, because we need to eliminate them and we don't just get rid of them completely. Even if we ignore this 9, then this goes to 10.5. And if we are reduced to 2 sig figs, that means we can only know this measurement to the same relative accuracy as this. So there's a lot of uncertainty here, right? We don't know this is exactly that. If that was the case, then we could use then we could get a really nice number, but we don't know. It's a kind of a rough estimation of 6.1 pounds per gallon. So we had to keep that same level of accuracy because we're preserving our amount of uncertainty that way. So in that case, that would just be 11 grams per milliliter. Is that correct? I mean, I actually look at the key.
No, it's like we're way off.
It was like 0.73.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 0.73 also.
Yeah, that's what I got.
What did I do wrong?
I think you multiplied 2,766.899. You multiplied it by 3.784 instead of timesing it by 1 over 3.784.
So here, okay. So we have our units of measurement of density are always going to be weight over volume. So this is a weight, this is a volume, this is a weight, this is a volume, weight and volume. So in order to isolate so if I want to get rid of the gallons, I have to multiply this value. Is that correct? Or am I doing this wrong because it's per liter? Do I do this inverse? So 1 gallon is this many liters, you're right. Okay, I see what you mean now. Okay, so let's do that math. Sorry about that. I guess I didn't notice this. So you guys should. All right. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. So if you guys already know what the value is, this is looking better.
Yeah.
Yes.
731.21 grams per liter. So then we just divide that by 1,000, right? So that's 31. 21. But we're still reduced to that number. So we can have 0.73 grams per milliliter. That's kind of a stupid way to notate it because of the number, but you could do that too. Is that the number you guys got now? Are you curious?
Yes.
Because so one was the entire question to begin with that this had 3 sig figs in the answer key. Or what was the issue?
No, I just I guess it's been a while for me, so I wasn't really sure how they got 2 significant figures
Okay.
in the answer key. This makes sense to me now.
Okay.
When you explained why there wasn't it wasn't 6.1000 or whatever, then it's 6.1 and you don't know what the if there were any digits afterwards. So like
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense to me now. So
Okay. Cool. Sorry about the mishap too in terms of the math. We all make mistakes. Right. Cool. How do I go back to not having this format? Oh, shoot. Oh. Okay. So yeah, it helps again to have a clear example of like how they got that measurement, and it's a very real life thing. When you're looking at numbers, it's easy to abstract them, but all numbers ultimately are, well, they are abstractions of the real world, meaning someone measured something. And to think of like an analogy is, I mean, I guess I've already said it. They don't know. They can estimate that it's 0.1 afterwards to the best of their knowledge, but with whatever instrument they're using, they couldn't estimate any more than that. So it's pretty unsensitive. They only had 2 sig figs, but that is what it is. Okay, so Kylie, do you want its name? If you can name it. So the more information you can put in your title, the more, you know, kind of sterile and scientific it sounds, the better. Because, so basically if you can tell me your name and then the assignment number, it makes it easy because I'm probably gonna download all these things, and then that way I know exactly who it is. Of course, you guys write your names on it, probably, I'm hoping you do. But this way, when I organize the files on my own computer, that makes it way, way, way easier. If you don't do that, I'm probably going to retitle. I'm going to rename your document to do it that way anyway, because that's how I would keep these things. So please, if you can, you could also put the data submission on there. I should have that with my documents, but again, for organizational purposes, if you're to put anything on there and make me very happy with your titles, then having your name, the assignment, including the lab, like for example, let's say lab 01, confidence integral. Yeah, I'll go over that in a little bit. Lab 01, lab report. I don't know, Kylie T, Evan 09, 15, 20. You don't have to do that stupid formatting with like the underscores. I got a habit of doing that with programming. Oh shoot, I'm sending a private message. Okay. So for the confidence integral, it's pretty cool that you guys are doing that actually. Oh, whoops, because I can't minimize this. So they're getting you to a little bit of statistics at the very beginning. So let's go over that. Where is that? That's in the first one, right? The density lab 01. And that's page 12. Okay, so you see how when she writes her on the manual that damn it. So the LibreOffice suite actually has everything you need. Basically, it's like the whole Microsoft suite for Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It's not, I mean, it's kind of like a generic off-brand. Like if you're to buy, you know, you go to like the cereal section, they have like the very, very obvious remaking of like, I don't know, Lucky Charms or something. It's called like Hope, Fortunate Trinkets or something stupid. That's kind of what LibreOffice is like, but it's free and it's just as powerful usually. The presentations are not as nice looking though. That's I think my biggest downside to it, but you can always download free templates too. So, but that's outside the scope of this class. So you see, this is also just like a formatting thing. So on page 12 for lab 1, for every time she's introduced a formula, she has the I don't know what you call it, but she's labeling them. So you guys, I don't know if you do that in this lab. You might as well start if you're not already required to. I need to actually look at the syllabus, but for lab reports in general, moving forward, at least in chemistry, this is always going to be expected. So when you have a theory section and you go over like the background of the lab, you have to introduce a lot of equations. So she did a good job. She introduced all these stats that you need to be using, and the stats are just mathematical tools that you can use to extract information that's not always it's not always apparent from the data. So she's labeled them so that you can refer back to them easily. Like if you're talking in the conclusion, using formula 2 or whatever, something like that, it makes it really easy. It's also good for organization, and it makes everything look good. So you had a question about the confidence interval in particular. What was it? What was your question? Explain the confidence interval. The last question, identity homework. Oh, it was on the homework. Okay, let's look at that. So for part A, the high and low number. Actually, does anyone else want to take a shot at this? I'll give you guys a shot for participation points, and also just because it's fun to hear you guys instead of myself.
Sure, I'll give it a shot. So all I did was I got the what the density of copper block was measured, which was 8.6, and then it says that confidence interval of 95% was plus minus 0.2. And so all I did was subtract and add that from the measured density. So 8.6 plus 0.2 would give you the high number, and then 8.6 minus 0.2 would give you the low number. The only thing I was kind of mad about was the unit grams over 70 centimeters cubed was specifically put as centimeters 3 instead of carat 3, and it marked me wrong on that. But I guess I could just change it.
Damn it! I keep instantly these private messages. It's page 8. Yeah. So for the density homework, that was great. That was right, Rowan. Thanks for that. For the density homework, I will, like I said before, I'm going to redraft it and I'll upload it again. And then I'm going to preview all the homeworks from the future. Like I have the homework for next week already. I'm going to preview it to make sure that the questions are, one, right, like the answers are right, because that's pretty stupid if they're not. And secondly, to clarify for units. I kind of talked about this in the beginning of class already, so yeah, I'm just reiterating that. So yeah, exactly. So the confidence interval, how do I explain this concept? If anyone has any background in stats and if they want to explain, please feel free to do so. I know we have a mathematician here, so that's kind of cool. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and describe it. So they're kind of like I was saying before, I don't want to get too like philosophical about this, but a number is an abstraction of a real entity. And when the closer you get to practicality, to the real world, the more you see that it's very difficult to know anything for sure. And usually due to an accumulation of uncontrollable events, whenever you take a recording or measurement of something, there's going to be a range that's produced. There are different types of ranges that are produced depending on whatever phenomenon it is, but one of the easiest ways to determine, or one of the easiest ways to pinpoint like a number, like let's say, like grades actually are a good one. That's a typical one that are used in academia. If I want to determine the average grade, there's going to be variation depending on individual student differences and depending on how difficult the class is, my teaching style, how clear things are. So a distribution is put. So there's an average number to that distribution. Like let's say it's 75% for a score, but that doesn't tell you that that's not every single person in the class. It's not like I could take you guys out individually and say that your grade is like 75, but that's the average for the class. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, I guess maybe making this too big of a deal, but so we don't know for sure when we're measuring these things that it's going to be exactly that measurement, because there's going to be some variation. So when you account for the variation that's observed, you can get a few different. You can model the variations according to a few different things. The standard deviation is actually really easy. It's not really a model. The standard deviation is just taking data and then writing and then manipulating them to give you an interesting number, which is a standard deviation. And the standard deviation tells you, for example, if I had a very large standard deviation with my 75, it means we're all over the place. Like there's some students getting zeros, 20s, 100s. There's like, everything is like random. Basically, there's a my mean is like not very representative of actually what's going on. If I've got a really small standard deviation, it tells me the mean that I've observed is actually pretty close to what's going on. So like 75, yeah, most people actually did get 75. Like they're plus or minus 5, but that's pretty close. The confidence interval is something similar. Basically, it gives you an interval between two numbers, and you also calculate you calculate the high and low values. And the confidence interval tells you that you have there's a 95% confidence. It's not exactly the same thing as chance, although at least when in my stats, we've always just called it confidence. So I don't know if it's exactly different in theory. You've got a 95% confidence that the true value lies within that mean. It's not super relevant here in terms of score distributions, but like if you're to take a measurement of, like you really want to find the true value of something, like you wanted to find, shoot, I don't know. How long, I guess, I'm just gonna go back to the early one. It's not the best example, but at least I'm working with it with grades. If I want to know really how hard this assignment is and what I'm expecting for students, the confidence interval tells me that at higher and higher confidences, I had to get a higher range to be sure that the true value was within that range. If you have a really relatively low confidence interval, you actually have a smaller range, because it means that it could be in this range, it could be outside this range. I'm actually not as confident it's in this range because the range is less encompassing. So it kind of follows like a normal distribution, meaning that at higher and higher confidence intervals, you have diminishing returns because you increase the confidence interval a lot without really telling you a whole lot about where the true value is. So if I'm going too far off on this, 95% confidence interval is really common, but there are a lot of different ones you could use. 90%, 99%, 95 is pretty average, and that just tells you that you're pretty damn sure in that confidence interval that whatever value you're looking for is in there. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but that was my response. Okay, any other questions?
So I have a question about the lab.
Yeah. We haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, so I already started doing it. I already built a spreadsheet for it, so like last night. So
yeah.
So I started. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I started putting the data points that you had on La Lima. The only issue I have is we can't really, well, at least I don't know how to put the uncertainty on each data point in the Excel. Or is that even important? Or do we just take the the measurement without the uncertainty and put it in the Excel.
Let me back up, Ruin, a
Sure.
little bit. So, okay, so Rowan's already started. There's actually not a whole lot for me to tell you here. Besides this, what I'm finding out is that not every single lab you guys are going to have a cool video to watch, and not every single lab you guys are going to actually do. I'm a little bit disappointed to hear that, but at the same time, that's kind of practical considering we had a week to redraft all the labs, and we had to get something out to be published within a week. Which means we have this compromise where we just give you guys data that someone else took, and then you do the analysis. So it's kind of like pretend lab. So on that note, on Nalima, in lab 01, I uploaded data that you guys need for the lab. So in other words, you have to just pretend like you did the lab. Which you kind of do already for this lab. At least a lot of the analysis, of course, you're still doing on Excel. You're not taking the measurements. I mean, it's not like it was a super brainy, difficult lab to take measurements in the first place, but it's still something because at least you're using tools. But anyway, yeah, I don't know every single lab format already, as in I don't know which labs you guys will and will not be doing. So I asked this question earlier if I should assume that you guys will be giving data for each lab. I don't know the answer yet, so I'm just going to tell you guys. But when I know, I will let you know for each lab individually if you guys will need to perform the experiment yourself or if you will just be taking data and doing the analysis. For the lab report itself, you should act as if you did the lab. So like write what you did, and that includes like the physical stuff. That seems annoying because you guys didn't actually do that. But I think I'd be shortchanging you to have you not do that because it's a chemistry lab. This isn't like an analysis lab. This is not an analytics class. This is supposed to be chemistry, so you're supposed to be actually doing some of the lab stuff. So at least if you write about it, it's closer to getting the actual experience and not doing that. As far as the sample lab report, Jennifer, I have a pre-lab sample under the references, and the lab report itself, like the template, is found on the syllabus. So you can use those two things. Probably once I get report myself, I guess I could probably draft something, but yeah, we'll see if I can draft some things. I don't know if I want to use like a student's actual report unless they wanted me to use an actual report as a template. But otherwise, maybe I'll draft something up for you guys. We'll see. And as far as the lab report due, well, for each week you have the homework, so you had to prepare for the lab report, and then there's a lab report that's due. So you have 2 assignments for each lab that's due. The actual procedures for this lab are found in the manual.
Yeah,
So,
I'm just a little confused because the lab itself in the lab manual spends so much like building up this Excel worksheet, and it just seems like it's not even used. I don't know.
maybe I should do the lab this with you guys.
Yeah, because maybe it's like, it just seems like, I don't know. There's like a theoretical thing that's happening with the actual Excel, and then what we're really supposed to be doing is just this off of what the table that you already gave us. So,
Is the table that you gave us with the data that we're going to use for the lab, or were those like pretend data?
No, that's a data we actually use for the lab.
Okay. And then I noticed that the TA Jesse uploaded a YouTube video. Is that explaining the lab?
Did you guys email
like
you guys?
45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I didn't get an email. I saw it somewhere else, but he uploaded like a 45-minute, and it says Chem161 lab density video, and he's like explaining things in front of a board.
Did you
Is that
find
for
that?
the lab?
Did you find another channel that I made?
No, it's I
Something
think
else.
it's Dr. Fuller's YouTube channel. I'm not too
Okay.
sure. I can put the link in the chat to show you if you know what I'm.
Sure. I actually have that video too. So that video is 1 second. So that video on the that Jesse made. So Dr. Fuller's been talking about this for a while. That makes me think. So on the homework that you guys had for the spreadsheets, the spreadsheets assignment, a very common question I got was regarding orders of operation, and I actually helped a lot of students tutoring with this too. So I've not taken any Dr. Fuller's classes, so I don't know how she is, but it seems like in that homework specifically, she wrote something down that would not work in Excel. And that was not unintentional, that was intentional on her part to make you guys think about it. So I'm saying this because I learned as a TA being in this university that you shouldn't trust the lab manual because it didn't work, and it was more often wrong than it was right. With Dr. Fuller rewriting it, I was pretty happy because it seems like it was going to be right, but she's also kind of consciously putting in, beware, the lab manual is not always trustworthy. So I'm telling you guys this in advance. I may or may not know in advance that there's going to be something she's planning to trick you guys with, so just beware of that. If you guys get an issue, I mean, feel free to email me. Again, you guys are the guinea pigs, so like for Thursday, it's much easier for me to prepare because I know what, I've already seen what she's done. I can kind of like, I can give you guys hints in advance so that you don't have that same problem. Anyway, why am I saying this? I kind of forgot why I was saying this. I had a point, but oh well. So, it was for, I think it was for Jesse's thing. So yeah, Jesse does have a video for density. So she does not want you to use that video unless you've attempted the lab. This seems to be like her instructional style because she doesn't want to give you the answers. And then there's a lot of deep instruction in that video that would, I don't know if it gives you the answers, but it at least probably makes things less arcane. So she's trying to encourage you guys basically to figure things out on your own. I personally feel like there are other ways you could do that. Ironically, before it was kind of, in some ways it was different because when you can't trust the lab manual you had to figure out on your own, you couldn't even trust me because I don't even know. But now she's manually putting these things in. It means there's a solution, but it also means that beware of those things too quickly because it might also take away from the learning experience. That being said, it's there. You can use it as a reference. Just I'm telling you that she specifically is requested to not look at that until you guys have attempted it, and then you're coming across like some obstacle and you're like, I don't know how to proceed forward. Then you go to that video and you'll help, and then you go forward. But otherwise, if you just follow the video as if it's like a procedure, then you don't learn as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
I also have that same video posted on the YouTube page, and I have it under instructional video, so you can go to it there. Okay, and so for uncertainty, Rowan, there are a few different ways you can do that. So for me, when I do assignments, a lot of times I just do it completely logical. And that being said, when I grade assignments, I'm not looking for math in particular, but in general, there's not always a right answer, ironically. I'm looking to see that you guys follow a certain logic. If you're showing me uncertainty in a way and someone else shows me uncertainty in a different way, and as long as the math works out, then I don't really care. I don't know if there's a specific way she's trying to get you guys to write this down in Excel. I would encourage you guys, regardless, when you're writing things down, you don't need to blindly follow the procedures, ironically, especially if this is just like Excel formatting. I mean, they're there to help you, but if something else is not clear, then you can always write that out more. Like a very common thing for the density homework, a very common thing for the density homework, I mean, the spreadsheets, was when you guys input density, it should give you like a big formula that doesn't work. So that never happens to me when not never. This doesn't usually happen to me when I do this, because I break each of those down into the individual components in Excel, and then I have my like formula at the end, which is like A over B, because I individually had A as like 5 components, and so I eliminate the need to have all those complicated parentheses because I've separated them out. If you do something like that and it works for you, then that's great. You don't need to do exactly how she does it.
That's how the lab actually has us do it. It
Really?
has us broken it down to like the X average and then summation of X initial, X average, and so on and so forth. And then it'll give us like this. It even has us do our own calculation of standard deviation, and then compare it to the Excel's calculation of standard deviation.
Cool.
But the only thing I was confused about was the T inverse, which I didn't really understand why that's needed in there. But
what page is that on?
I'm not actually looking at the lab. 1 second.
So for this lab in particular, I have a proposal. I would like to go over this, like I could screen share and I could basically go over the Excel. I could write these things out. But I want to give you guys a chance to do it on your own first. So what I'm thinking I'll do is once we get all the questions like broadly figured out, we'll have like a break for like some time. I don't know exactly how much time yet. And then we will come back and then we can go over the Excel spreadsheet together and all the data. And then we can also go over like the lab manual, the lab report, so you guys know what you're doing and everything looks fine. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rowan, did you find the inverse T?
Yeah, it's on bottom of page 15 on the lab. He says you can either use the TI, which is T inverse function,
Oh, I see.
or the confidence interval formula. I guess I could just try the confidence interval formula, because I guess I don't really know how to use the T inverse function correctly.
I've never used that.
I got like, it's a pretty tiny number, so I don't know if that's correct, or I don't know. I'll try the other formula.
So my guess is what the T-inv is. It's probably giving you an interval following a student's t-test, probably two-sided t-test. That's my guess, and that's giving the confidence interval at 95%, which is what it's defaulting to. You can probably edit that if you know how to use the function more. So what I'll do is, like I said before, we'll take a break, and then I'll go over this too. So I'll input it in Excel. And then once I have done it all to myself, and I can answer the technical questions much more easily. But I've never actually used T-inv before, but that's my assumption, is that it's a two-sided student's t-test defaulting to 95% confidence interval. And then it gives you a value of 1/2 of that interval. So plus and minus that. You know what I mean?
That makes perfect sense, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I don't know how much time you guys would like how much time do you think it takes? I want to give you at least an hour, but that one leaves us about 30 minutes to talk and discuss at the end. Do you guys have any preference for like 45 minutes to work on it, or an hour? I mean, I don't know how long. I'm gonna default to an hour though.
I think an hour is good.
Okay. So let's come back then like at 11:30. So I'll end the meeting. because I'm gonna go too. I'll take a break and then. But email me if you guys have questions in real time. I can even get the Zoom meeting starting again, and you guys can and you can talk about it. So, but I'm gonna take myself like a 5-minute break, and then I'll come back. So, yeah, if you guys have questions, you can come back onto the Zoom, and then we're working through it. So yeah, we'll work on lab 1, and so just go through it as best you can in an hour. Try to finish it on your own. I don't want you guys to rely on me because as we're starting out here, I'll be more hands-on, but over time, I need to be more. I'm going to transition to being hands-off, so it's in your benefit to try to be able to complete on your own. But at least that means when we come back at 11:30, we'll have a lot of time. You guys will have experience making answer questions so that there's not as much confusion moving forward. Sound good?
Yeah, thanks, Dylan.
Okay. All right, so I'll end the meeting for now, and then like in about 5 minutes, I'm going to rehost it again. And then if you feel free to come on at will. Otherwise, and I'm just going to be doing the Excel. So I'll just be here to answer questions.
All right, thank you.
All right, see you guys. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.